So let's start with the introductions. My name is Fran. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And yeah, I love to take people out in the rain and kids out and go hiking or backpacking. I think that's where our healing is. And I think we especially need these moments now. I think there's nothing more humbling than standing by a beautiful river and realizing that we are a small part of something big, but very essential. And then all this that's going on around us is outside of this magical moment. So I love to gift that to people. I think that's a really important thing to do. Even if it's just like in your backyard, just getting out of the box that we live in. All right, Robert, you want to do your introduction?
Hi there. I'm Robert Schultz, full-time single father of 3 amazing youth, and into scouting and a bunch of other adventuring. In fact, at the end of this, I'm going to try to share a video of me and Frances and our kids at Beacon Rock in the rain. It just dawned on me when she was talking, like, wait, I have this amazing video of us literally doing this thing, this amazing thing. And it's kind of great and it's epic. And I'll try to find it. If I don't, well, we'll just have to dream.
It's all right. We'll have to do another one.
And happy to and excited to talk about hiking in the rain. My oldest are twin boys. They're 17. And yeah, we've been hiking since they were little guys. And in the rain, the sun, whatever comes at us, we've been there, snow, etc. So it's exciting for me.
Tammy.
Oh, sorry.
I was muted.
I was waiting for you, Fran, to tell me it was my turn to talk. Okay, so my name is Tammy, and I have 4 kids, and I'm involved in Girl Scouts and training adults through Girl Scouts to teach them a variety of safety things. I do first aid and wilderness first aid, and I have a grandson who's 7. And we've been hiking and backpacking and camping and everything from the time that my kids were infants. So, you know, like Robert, I've been out there doing all kinds of stuff in the mud, in the sun, in the snow, and whatever. So please ask questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
All right.
I am Nellie Long, and I have, you can hear me, right? I'm gonna assume.
Yes.
I have been hiking and backpacking and doing outdoor things with kids who are from the ages of 4 on up to right now there is a 20-year-old, and that 4-year-old has turned into a 20-year-old. And so we have seen it all and done it all. Most of my experiences with those children who do not belong to me, and solo experiences. And I find that regardless of whether it's solo or a group, all of these apply pretty much at the same level. I'll turn it over to you, Leslie.
All right, Leslie's turn.
Hi, my name is Leslie Bugg. I'm the grandma of the group. I have grandkids from 4 to 24. I did hiking and camping with my kids when they were younger, which was many years ago. And then I kind of got out of it for a while. And then my boys got to be teenagers, so I got involved with Boy Scouts and did a lot of camps and hikes and high adventure with them. I was committee chair, so got to be the whip cracker. Yeah, and so now I'm kind of getting back into it now that I've had like a break, I guess. So lots of fun.
All right. Okay. I got needy dogs too. Yeah, be simple. All right. So I would like to bring in a land acknowledgement, and I apologize for reading it, but I think the words are really important. And sometimes I have a scrambled egg brain or salad brain sometimes. So it's the lack of sleep. When do they sleep all the way through the night? I want to know, when does that happen? All right. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes and hope for a better life, and some lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect, connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We are living on the ancestral lands of the Monoma, Wasco, Cowlitz, Willamette, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River, creating communities and summer encampments. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. All right. I think that's important when we're walking in the forest and when we're going out in the woods and enjoying everything. All right.
Fran,
Yeah.
Fran, can you hear me? Most of the people who've answered have kids under the age of 13.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Just to let
Awesome.
everyone know.
So I guess emphasizing of like how to leave the house. Important. Oh my God. Logic doesn't work. All right. So let's go on. And this is, oh, hell, I was supposed to show this slide. This is me multitasking. Here's the slide with all the words on it. So you know the tribes that lived here. Okay, now we'll go on to Robert's slide here. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. There we go, Robert. See my tech face? All right, I'll mute myself so I'll quit chattering.
Excellent. And I have a 30-second video, but let me chat for a moment and then we'll do this video and see if anybody's got any questions for my little chunk. Does everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you. And I have to stop sharing and then you do the video. Is that how it works?
Well, I think I have to share for me to do the video, but we'll worry about that at the end of my little spiel.
Okay.
My contribution. All right, are we ready? Are we buckled up? I wrote this out and I started to kind of just to put my thoughts on this. And I read it and my daughter was sitting across from me and she's like, me? Are you me? I'm like, no, I'm practicing this. So hiking in the rain, why would you do this? Well, there are many great reasons. And as a parent, I think we are all often inclined to this idea of sharing the good and the bad with our youth while also protecting them from the really bad. Like we're not necessarily taking a 3-year-old into a riotous situation. So is a rainy day hike really bad? I suggest it could be, but it really isn't most of the time. And as some of the other folks are going to talk about the things you plan for as you get ready to go with the conditions and the location of your adventure, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, even if it's raining. Now, high wind storms aside, I mean, if there's high winds, you don't want to necessarily be near power lines and falling trees and such, but just a rainy Oregon day, perfect time for adventuring. While going on these adventures, one of the things that I believe in is that we're building these experiences where our youth are safe, but a little uncomfortable. Like they're cold or wet, or they're a little bit lost because they haven't been there before. It's new and they're not quite sure. And that's where we teach them. We teach them how to orient themselves. We teach them how to plan ahead, etc. But I digress. In these instances, they're watching us and they're learning from us how we react to the same conditions. Do we suffer in silence? Do you grin and bear it? Do you respond to the conditions with the proper gear and still have a good time with a positive attitude? I tend to be far more optimistic than the situations frankly deserve, but you know, that's just me. So when hiking on the trail, your children are given to sharing their journey, and often you're given to sharing your journey, and that can be through observations such as, hey, look, there's a deer fern or there's a Douglas fir. I always like to talk about Douglas fir cones and the story of the mice, which if I get to the end of this and somebody wants to hear the little story, I like to tell it. It's super fun. Or we talk about moss and lichen. And of course, little ones will point out that cool slug or the cool rock or the neat way that the dirt looks after they jump in the puddle and send all the water everywhere. And they have a lot of fun with that. And that sharing, that moment to just be candid and kind of have fun with each other, is not often found when you're sitting in the living room. Often in rain, the trailheads are less crowded. People, when they're getting in and out of cars, are usually not just kind of standing there. So in COVID times, that's to your benefit because you're less likely to have a large group or mass of folks because they're each getting in and out of their car. Conversely, when they're walking down the trail, they're typically more destination oriented when they're hiking in the rain. They want to get to whatever the thing is, rather than like in the summer and in the sunny days where every corner offers something, especially for youth, some little discovery of something that's growing or a flower or a attractive rock, etc. There's still a lot to see in the rain, but it is raining. And so dwelling on the trails tends to be a little bit lighter for just, again, COVID concerns. You're also teaching your youth how to plan ahead just as much as how to reflect on their hike. And we've done this, and I've seen this as a scoutmaster in a rather large troop when driving back. We as a troop, I try to advocate for 2 roses and a thorn, or 2 good things and a bad thing. And I typically try to start that with the bad thing. So I say something like, you know, on the drive home, hey, what was one thing you thought was just less than great? And then they'll say that, and I'll say, what are 2 things you really liked? With toddlers and little ones, this can be excellent for bath time. Like you get home, they get in that nice hot bath, and you kind of unwind and you talk about that adventure. Wonderful moment to just bond over your shared experience. And finally, this pandemic is isolating, and a walk in the woods, even for just a half mile, can be an incredibly grounding exercise. Feel the difference of the forest air. There was a naturopath that swore that his beating cancer was attributed to him going to a coniferous forest at least once a week and spending the night there and breathing in that fresh air. And certainly, I think people can share the experience of like when they get in the woods, they just tend to feel good. Granted, if you're not having a great time because you didn't prepare, that might impact that. But typically, people are feeling pretty good. So I kind of went through this. I'm a fast talker. Hopefully that works for everybody. But I have 2 things still to go. One is the story of the Douglas fir pine cones, if anybody wants to hear it, and a short video. And of course, does anybody have any suggestions of what they think are good reasons to get out into the rain, such as the therapeutic sound of raindrops falling in the forest? So before I get into my other 2 items, does anybody have any comments or questions at this quick interlude?
Someone
I don't know
asked
if you
in the
can tell, but I'm utterly thrilled to share this video. So
someone asked in the chat if you could share the wettest, muddiest outing you've had.
Wettest, muddiest. Well, I can do better than share it. So with that, Francis, if you'll share your screen or allow me to share my screen. I don't know what I'm doing. So if I hit this button and I hit this other button, I think, oh, there it goes. So can you guys see this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is amazing. It's amazing. Let me see if I can do this.
What do you think?
Hold on a second. Sorry, let me get a better view. I didn't quite plan for this, so you'll have to give me just a second here. There we go.
How was the hike? Was good?
Yeah, but rainy and cold.
Rainy and cold? Ava, you're at the top. What do you think? Look at me.
Good.
Look at the camera.
It's good.
It's good? Lee, what do you think? Francis? And it's windy. Woohoo!
So as you can see, cold and rainy, windy, and high elevation. And
Oh my gosh.
still having an amazing time. Francis toting one on her.
On my chest. That was
kangaroo.
Emery when he was a baby.
So that is an amazing reason to get out and hike in the rain, and the wind is still fun. It's still safe. And, you know, you can see by the kit we had, we didn't really have heavy duty gear. We had modest rain gear, like you would expect for a little one. And the wind, I don't remember the exact wind speed, but I think it was pushing like 15, 20 knots. So
We had to lean into the wind to hold onto the railing, right? And we held onto the kids' hands and we were like, it's gonna be all right. All right, look at this view. This is amazing.
The view of
Holding
rain.
on, like, because we're gonna be flown off.
So this is an excellent example of one of the wettest. That's one of the wettest. I mean, I have a couple probably that are worse than that, but that was one of the wettest. For given that we had a drive through the gorge to Beacon Rock, it's just on the other side of the river. You take the, I believe it's the Bridge of the God. No, it's not the Bridge of Gods. It's
Yeah,
the toll.
it is Bridge of the Gods. Yeah.
Is it? Oh man.
That's the toll bridge.
Yeah, so and it's right over there. It's super simple to get to. I've been there with many folks. That I think was one of my absolute favorites, and we got it on video. So any good questions? Anything else? I got my story about the pine cones if people want it.
We've got another question in the chat. Someone asked how you share the reasons to hike in the rain and like convince kids that it's a good idea.
Oh, amazing. So I'm a big fan of like, well, my sons are 17 now, and I now have the reputation of misrepresenting the length of hiking. So I'll be like, it'll be quick. It'll be like 20 minutes. No big deal. And then 2 hours later, they're like, yeah, 20 minutes, Dad. Yeah. Well, when they were little, it didn't matter much. So I would often say, hey guys, we're going to go on a little adventure. Let's go for a hike. This typically happens like when it was just my twins and myself. That was more about like, we need to get out of this house. We're going to just go insane in here. We need to go out in the world and see the world, and really just offering it like a tour guide downtown. Hey, come look at Portland Leather Company. Woo! Hey, let's go out and see some trees together. And, you know, in my experiences, my kids have not been that hard to compel to get out of the house. I have at times leveraged things like, yeah, you're going to have to stop with all the electronics until we get back. So if you want to do on electronics, then we need to go out into the woods so you can earn that and do some cardio stuff. We've gone on short hikes to like the wetlands, Smith Bybee wetlands and things of that nature. For a time, I was taking my boys to every park in the city and taking their picture in front of it. And so it became such a normal thing that convincing and kind of cajoling them into it wasn't very hard at all. They were pretty prepped for it. It was just our normal. One of my sons is a cancer survivor. And so for about 2 years, 3 years, we didn't do much at all outside. So when we were finally free of that, we survived and everything's great. We were instantly back into the woods. And again, it wasn't very hard to say, hey, let's go out. Like, we don't have these restrictions anymore. So it's always been kind of easy for us. But then I've always been one of the woods. Look, I got this big beard, woodman beard. So
that's where I wore my flannel. I thought, oh, that looks woodsy.
Can I add something to you, Robert?
Yeah, Nellie, go for it.
I would say, to answer that person's question on convincing them, adults need to be convinced. Kids generally often don't after a couple of times. And I'm going to add this. I don't know any human being that does not want to jump in the puddles. Like, hey, put on your boots. Let's go jump in some puddles.
Right? Puddle jumping's the best.
Like, it really is just recognizing that they're going to go on a fun adventure.
Yeah.
And I have a short story, and you're welcome to use this with your youth. And it's told many ways, but it's effectively about once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a great forest fire coming across the land, and all the big animals, the deer, the elk, the antelope, they could run really fast. The bear and the wolf, they could run really fast and get out of the way of the fire. But the wee little forest mice, their little legs couldn't carry them away from the big fire that was coming down upon them. And so they asked all the trees for help. They said, oh, help us, Ponderosa Pine. Can we climb inside and on you? And Ponderosa Pine's like, no way, I'm not doing that. Go find some other place. And they searched all around all the trees. And the great and mighty Douglas fir said, yes, you may shelter in my pine cones. And to this day, you can see their little hind legs and their little tail poking out of the pine cones. And that's how you know it's a Douglas fir. And with that, on to the next person. Thanks y'all for indulging me.
Thanks, Robert.
Of course. It's always fun. I am going to talk about how to layer them so they stay warm. I have one kid that never gets wet and muddy, and then another kid that I could bring 3 changes of clothes and he'll still. And also, if I don't dress him all the way before he leaves the house, then whatever he's wearing is what he's going to get into. So hiking boots. I wrote on the Facebook account of every winter I start again learning what I forgot I knew the last time. Hiking boots are insulated. They aren't exactly waterproof like rain boots, but they're warm. So these are way better than rain boots, with a pair of wool socks that fit, that aren't too big and crunch underneath their toes. And you need socks because blisters. So sometimes I've made the mistake also thinking like, oh, snow boots, like they're warm, they're waterproof, but they're heavy and they're not meant for hiking. That has a little more flexibility. And like a cake, you want to layer them with wools. This is, and it doesn't have to be wool like super fancy, super expensive. This is from Next Adventure. It's like a wool blend. It's got all sorts of junk on it, and it's you put this on as your base layer. And wool is great because it'll keep you warm even when it's wet or when you're wet. You can also get a synthetic. Oh, look at, I'm showing this, like you can tell the difference in the fabric. So anyway, this is a synthetic that you can put underneath, and then pants and a shirt before you go. And the magic rain pants. These are amazing. So there's, so they can get muddy and wet in these, and they will still stay dry, right? And then of course, the rain jacket. And this is a thin rain jacket. I've found that when you do like a winter coat, if it's really coming down, that's a really, they get soaked all the way through. So also, I think having warm drinks with you, and the big deal is prepping the night before. And this builds the excitement for the big adventure that you're going to have the next day. So having like some awesome treat, like if one kid likes hot cider or hot chocolate, I find those little packs of soup are great to have back at the car, you know. And of course, a bag for wet clothes. Another cool thing. Oh, I'm reading my last note. I'm going to try to move on because we only have 30 minutes. Is when you finally get in the car and everybody's buckled, whether they're crying or screaming or angry, you should celebrate you have left the house. And then when you arrive at the destination and you open the door and they just pour out, you have arrived. And it's okay to really celebrate it. I found these at Cabela's, and these are little hand warmers. They're Zippo hand warmers, and you light them. It's really cool. There's no flame. They're flameless, and they fit in these little bags, and they provide 6 hours of beautiful warmth for your hands. They're cool in a couple of reasons. They keep you warm. They're sort of novel, and I think maybe $12 for these, refillable, which is super awesome. So yeah, what's cooler than having a little fire in your pocket, right? So so a tip for leaving the house, and then we'll move on to the next. We'll move on to Tammy. Is in the morning, move like you mean it. Have all your bags packed at the door. Have your lunch pre-made. And just go. Don't do the one more thing or we might need, because that dawdle sort of draws things out. You have to move like you're heading to school. And even if you don't leave early, it's okay to leave a little bit later, and still, sometimes it's taken me longer to drive than stay out in a place, and that's okay too. You know, yeah. All right. So any,
we had one question in the chat. Someone asked about using synthetics as a base layer if someone has a wool allergy.
Yeah, that's my other, yeah, you can at Target, I think they have some really great layers. Anything synthetic, you just want to stay away from those cotton, you know, those old school red thermals.
I don't own anything that has wool in it, and not from an allergy, just because I don't, and it's fine. I do fine. Yeah.
And I, you know, I don't have a lot of like fancy hiking shirts or hiking pants or anything like that. I still do the cotton outer layer. I know, I'm thrown out of the club.
Yeah, I'd have to mimic that. I don't have any wool either, except for when it's an overnight, I have a wool cap, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Oh my good use, you guys. I've got wool, I've got synthetic, I've got down. Oh my goodness. Guys, we need to go shopping. Oh. Francis,
I was gonna say the same thing, Robert. I was like, I have so many layers of different things that keep my body warm. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's important, right? There's all these different ways to do it. And
exactly. And there isn't a wrong way.
And it's okay if there is the great tragedy, the great too cold you think like your finger's going to fall off. It's okay because you know why? You survive it and you live through it. You've been uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable, and you're okay. And I think that's a critical lesson for kids and for adults, right? You're not going to die. It'll be okay. Thanks a lot.
Francis, if I could ask, so recalling the hike to Beacon Rock, I believe your pack was some diapers and like some modest snacks. I don't think there was much else with it, was there?
No, that was when I was still trying to figure it out. I thought, oh, they all need changes of clothes.
But my point in bringing that up is like we went to the top of Beacon Rock and obviously you saw the weather and there was no grand planning per se. I knew where we were going. I had some experience. Francis was game and off we went. We knew where we were going. We kind of planned it, right? We didn't just go to some random thing. I'd been there before. And I suggest that as you're trying to get out the door, as you're working on those steps of like, we want to get in the woods, that it's okay to just get there, as Fran points out. And I love when she talks about it, like the first success is you've made it to the car and then you've now made it to the trailhead and off you go. And I think that is a wonderful thing to live by.
Yeah, I was backpacking with a single dad, 2 kids, and he'd done the AT before kids, and then it was his first backpacking trick, and we could still see the car, and he's like, "Is this still considered backpacking?" And I was like, "Well, we put it on our back and we walked here." Actually, it turned out great because they ended up back in the car. It's all right. Yeah. It's about getting out. Okay, we got still about 25 minutes.
Okay.
Tammy, I think it's your magic.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the hike itself, actually. And the first thing I want to say is we all, like it's right there at the top, you have permission to fail. It's okay. If you get there and you go 25 yards and the kids are like, "Get me out of here. I hate this." And you know what you do? Then you turn around, you go back and you start again another day. It's all okay. Because you know what? You made it there and you got out of the car and you attempted it and it's all good. And it was so funny because the other day I was going through like Facebook pictures, remember Fran, and the picture came up of Lee playing on the trail with his trucks.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, you know what? If it's just going to a place where your kids can play with their trucks in different mud, then that's what you do.
Right.
You just play with your trucks in a different place. And that's okay because they love it and they're having fun. And it isn't really about how far you go. It's about the memory you're making with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And
yes.
We didn't go far. We were just over at Trillium, right? Was that Tryon Creek?
Yeah, that's right.
So we weren't even far out of town. We were pretty close. And so I just think it's just super, super important that you remember it's just about taking that time with your kids outside of your house and making a memory. And one thing when we were talking, Nellie had said, practice getting lost. And that's a brilliant idea, is practice letting them know, you know, sometimes that happens. My grandson, who's 7, and things that I taught my kids when they were little, when you get to a spot, if you get ahead of me and you have the option to go this way or that, then you wait for me. Because if you go this way and I go that way, then we're not going to meet at the same place. So I think, I mean, you can say if you get to a T, you have to wait for me, or if you get to some place where you can't see me. But sometimes when you're on a trail, it's not always a straight line. So, you know, sometimes they'll go around a bend and you can't see them or they can't see you. But if they know that if they have to make a real turn and make a decision that they have to wait for you, that's a great plan too. We have friends that use umbrellas. Use them if you want them. I don't know that I've ever hiked with an umbrella. I did start wearing a hat because I have glasses now. So I used to never wear a hat. My hair would get wet. Sometimes I'd put my hood up. I'd be like, whatever. I have photos of me with a plastic bag on my head. Whatever. You know, just do whatever. As long as you're out there having fun, you know, at some point, if it's just a day hike, you're going to get back out into your car. You're going to change your clothes and put warm clothes on and turn your heat on. and maybe have some hot soup when you get there. You know, we're not going to melt. We might be cold for a little bit. In the Northwest, a lot of kids, like in my Girl Scout troops, I'm constantly telling them sweatshirt is not rain gear, but you know what? Teenagers don't listen. They do what they want to do. They're going to wear a sweatshirt, whatever, let them do it. You know, it's their body. They'll get cold. And then maybe next time they'll wear their rain jacket. I mean, who knows? I am an avid puddle jumper. Like I grew up in Southern California where it didn't rain much. So when I moved up here in the late 80s, I was so excited to jump in puddles. And my kids always thought I was crazy because there were times when we'd be walking even through the parking lot and I would soak them with a puddle. So when we're out on a trail and I actually get to walk through a puddle and get them soaking wet with mud, it's the best when I'm the one that gets there first and I get to get them. But they love it when they get to get me. And you know what? You just have to suck it up and go, oh, man, they got me first, whatever. But it happens. My thing about that is not to go around the puddle because that area around the puddle is an area that we want all that stuff to grow back, right? I mean, the trail is the trail. We don't want to go beyond the trail. We want to save that area. It's part of like a leave no trace thing that's really important for us to remember. But yeah, go right through the puddle, jump through it, get each other muddy, get your shoes all gross and grimy. You'll have new shoes and socks at the back at the car when you get there. I'm trying to think. Just always have a positive attitude. Go out there, have a great time. Does anyone have any questions? I feel like I rambled really fast.
No, you did a great job.
Yeah. I think that there's some, because there's so many young kids, that the adults are like, how do we find resources for where to go? And I would, yeah, Portland.
My
thank
favorite,
heavens you live here.
my favorite book that I really, really like because it's set up by the season is it's by Matt Reeder, and I think it's PDX 365 is one of my favorite books, mostly because it is set up by the month, and so it does January, February, and then in each month it gives you several hikes to choose from. Then they go from easy to difficult. So that's a fun one. And that one that's the one I usually recommend to people, especially if they're new to the area and looking for hikes. It's always right around the Portland metro area. It goes down to Salem a little bit, but they're all pretty local.
I would say another thing is, even if you stay close to home, having a goal like, oh, today we're going to go out and we're going to use our new stove and figure out how to make lunch on our little stove. Or we got these great new water filters. We're going to go figure out how to use our water filters. That kind of stuff, by far, kids love it. They love it. They love it when they are successful at something unique and interesting that other people don't do.
Yeah.
You know, Janice wrote this awesome little story. I don't know, Janice, do you want to share it, or it's in the chat, or I can read it. It sounds really awesome.
Oh,
Janice, are you there?
It's finding the mute button. It's so cruel. And computers have changed our sense of time. Like,
Will you do it?
Yeah,
Will you do it?
Janice has this cool story she put in the chat.
She asked if you could read it.
Oh, okay, cool. Story, I was chatting too much. This is from Janice. There was a time I went out with my kids and I think we were going to do a hike, but they just wanted to do parkour, in quotes, on the rocks in one spot. So it came down to me adjusting my expectations at the beginning and giving them a chance to play first. And then they were okay. Yeah. Right on.
yeah, that's when we went backpacking that time, Francis. Remember, we got out of the car and the kids just went right up the hillside.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the time when they were laying on their back in the trail, like bugs, like squished bugs. And I was like, oh my God. Or Robert, remember that? Yeah, I thought it was a 2-mile hike and it ended up to be 8 hours.
Burr Lake is an amazing place to go. Even better when you know how far it is.
Oh, all right. Or set expectations. All right.
Well, and I think, to tag on to something Tammy noted about having your children stop at the crossroads, if you will, the cross trails. That was it, on that burnt lake that you just referenced. That's what allowed the children to be empowered. So my 11-year-old daughter and
This is awesome.
how old was he? Or how
He's
old?
7.
7.
But when I yell at him, I think he's 8. Why are you doing that for an 8-year-old? 7. Okay.
They were off on this trail between us and the older boys, and just hiking along together, happy as clams, looking at the forest, chitter-chatting the whole way. Francis and I were behind him, so it was very safe. We knew the trail going in. Allowing them that freedom was just amazing to see kind of how they wore it. It was a great experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one time we went overnight hiking, camping, and the trail went around that little lake. And so Lee got to just by himself. Yeah. How old was he then?
Oh my gosh. Shell Rock. 8 or 9. Emery was like 5. Yeah.
And he got to walk around the trail by himself, because where it started, it ended where we were camping.
Yeah.
So what was the risk, basically?
Yeah. And they have an instinct about staying. That was like one of my fears when I first started about losing him. But I've lost them so many times that I'm okay now. Right? Like I'm joking, but I'm not joking.
Right. No, I agree. I think.
And I would say if you have teenagers, what I've learned with the teenage pack is they wait for you to camp and then they want to wander off and live their own life, right? They want to have their own hike experience. And so it's more about us getting comfortable than them being comfortable.
Right.
That's so true.
Definitely.
So we're at 15 till. Oh, is somebody trying to chat in there?
No, I was just gonna say post hike.
The parkour story was awesome.
Yeah. I know, right? So true.
That just reminds me, we went 2 different things. We went with my younger daughter and my older daughter. And my younger daughter has 2 little ones, and we had one of the teenage grandsons with us. And so the teenage grandson, we were walking as a group, and all of a sudden he takes off up the hill and the 2 little ones go with him, and the older daughter went with him, and she turns around and looks at me and the younger daughter and is like, "Aren't you 2 coming?" And we're like, it's pure mud. No, we're not. But it was okay for the kids to, even my dog was like, "You really want to climb that?" And the dogs are usually game. Let's go. So maybe loosen up sometimes and be willing to express your inner child. But the other one was my younger daughter and I had planned a pretty nice hike, reasonable for what we'd been doing. And we ended up at this really nice, the campsite was closed, but the camp host let us go in anyway. And we ended up at just this really nice kind of decking where you could go out and observe the wildlife, right? The only thing those kids wanted to do was walk back up, fill their pockets full of rocks, and walk back down to the deck and throw all the rocks in the water. And that's what we did for an hour and a half. I swear, an hour and a half. We just threw rocks in the water. That's all they wanted to do. And then it was raining, so we went home and got warm. It's okay to do that. This was like 3 and 5-year-old. So lots of
Nellie,
fun.
did you want to talk about post stuff before we run out of time?
Yes, so I will be quick because it's up on the screen, but here is the gist of it. Every single human being is pretty much going to survive most of the stuff that happens in Oregon. You might get cold, you might get wet, but unless you hit like high elevation snow, you're just going to be cold and miserable. So when you get back to the car, I learned really quickly with any child, and I included myself as a child, that they needed to have a garbage bag, and all the wet clothes went into that garbage bag, and we put on new clothes. Or we sat in our underwear, but we never stayed in those wet clothes. And then we immediately got something warm to drink. And sometimes that was because we brought a thermos of hot chocolate. And sometimes it was because we drove someplace and bought something warm. Like, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Like sometimes we set rules about what it means, and like those rules are just arbitrary and stupid. And so you can kind of make your own rules. We also did warm food. So like, well, it wasn't always warm, but it was food. So like our family favorite is Luna bars. And it's this peppermint one. So I always have a stack of them. Sometimes I just grab, oh, you can't see it. Sometimes I just grab a box of my favorite cereal. That's what you can't see me holding up. I dehydrate food. And so we sometimes just grab the jars of dehydrated food, and that's what we grab. It's whatever the kids want. The babies tend to like these little fruit bars because they can hold on to them. But that's the gist of it. I mean, it really doesn't matter. I'll even pack, sometimes the car doesn't get warm enough fast enough for kids. And so I pack them these, like what Francis has, or these little disposable ones. But the more important than that, I would say, is this concept of laughing about it. So we have had, if you think about your family stories, you never are going to tell the story of that time you did something and nothing interesting happened. Like that's never going to be it.
Or you sat on the couch and watched that movie.
Right? You're like, well, we went to that play and then it was lovely and then it was over. No. You're like, you went to the play and there was a person that got sick on stage. You're going to remember that one forever. And so the kids will always remember like the time that I fell in the water because I was trying to refill the water bottle, or like the time that we all got so drenched, or like the time we were covered in mud up to our waists because like it was, we couldn't get, like the hike was just so muddy. And so just like we laugh about that all the time. We also laugh about like we have this thing about pooping and peeing in the woods. And my niece was like,
I think that should be our first like
our chat. My niece was like 13 and we'd gone on this hike and I always dug the holes for her. Like she was not comfortable digging her own holes. And then one day she just decided she wanted to give it a shot. And she did it. And the only thing we talked about for weeks on end, including the entire 4-hour drive home, was that she dug a hole and pooped in the woods by herself. And I just rolled with it because it was awesome. It was awesome. And then we would talk about where are we going to go next? And her response was like, we can go as far as we want because I know how to poop in the woods now. Awesome. Let's pick a place. Like, and Robert mentioned earlier the 2 thorns. The 2 roses and a thorn. I would also recommend that. Anything that you as the adult did that was ridiculous or funny, letting your children tease you about that is epic and allows them to fail. And they're doing that with their favorite food. Like you were creating the salt, sugar, fat, funny, like all of those come together to have like perfect family memories, which is actually the entire point of doing it. So
one time Lee rescued me out of it was Salmon River, and we had to climb down that muddy hill, and I had that giant pack on, and I kept trying to climb up the hill. He had down his trekking poles so he can pull me up. Remember the time I rescued you?
Yep.
We do. They love that stuff.
Yes. Well, does anybody from the audience have any questions or stories they want to share, something to cackle about?
Because we can talk forever.
Oh, yes. We'll even meet after this and talk some more.
I will say this. So I would not do this with younger children, but with older children, you can be, I mean, you can do it with younger kids, but you know, it's funner with older kids. You can literally be soaked to the bone, so cold, you're not shaking, but almost shaking. And I would say with teenagers, if you know you're a teenager, they can be shaking and you're going to be fine. You're going to get in the car. You're going to turn the heat on. This is a first world problem we're having. Someone's going to run through the store, get something, you know, like it's okay if literally everything that you planned failed, including like nobody wants to eat the food in the car. They want hamburgers or they just want to go home. All of that is completely fine and you will be successful.
But that brings up a good point about resiliency and what Robert was saying about children are learning by watching what you do and how you deal with situations and what you turn it into. And then it's applicable to life and those challenges, you know?
Right.
My kids still talk about that 2-mile hike that was 8 hours and day trippers like passing us with their packs.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember to be resilient and to change your expectations based on what the kids want to do. Because if you let them guide you, it's so much fun to let them be in charge too, right?
The
Like
maps.
there's times when I'll give Aiden the map, and this time there was a time I think he was like 5 maybe, and we gave him the map and we let him guide us. It was on a trail that I had been on before. I knew it and I knew that he could do it, but he had never been there, and he got to guide us through this trail. I was like, okay, this is where we are, this is where we're going, these are, you know, and I gave him the points of how to do it, and he was so excited to make the choices, because no matter what choice he made, we were going to get back, right? Because of where we were. But it's just so fun to empower them, to let them be in charge. And it's yeah, and Tryon Creek is great for that. Thank you for posting that, Nellie, because there's so many places throughout Tryon Creek that no matter what turn you make, you're gonna get back up to the top.
I always get trapped by that suspension bridge though.
The suspension bridge is closed.
Oh.
It's in repair.
Oh.
I know. But yeah.
My story doesn't involve kids, but one of my favorite hiking trips of my own life was on a day that had like 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts.
Yes. Oh,
and I was with a bunch of my friends, and we were just like had these like comically wide stances, you know, just like trying not to get knocked over and like holding on to each other. And we were just laughing the entire time. We got a couple of great photos, just, you know, with our bodies like leaning like that into the wind.
Yeah.
We're just like cheesing. And
that's awesome.
Really fun.
Like when you hike out at the gorge, it's almost always pretty windy. I have pictures where my hair's like standing straight up. And for those that know me, my hair is usually pretty, you know, product.
Yeah.
So there are hiking groups you can join. There are parent groups you can join. Obviously, COVID restricts a lot of that. There's scout troops for boys and girls and both. There's adventure groups and outdoor groups and all kinds of stuff. So if the biggest hurdle you seem to face is like, oh man, who do I go with? That's an easy one. I mean, you can write to any of us. Most of us are hiking pretty much regularly anyway. So
well, we used to host trips all the time.
Oh, do you want to talk about the website real quick, Tammy, so people can go to it?
Oh, yeah, I'll share it again. Sorry.
Oh, okay, good, friend.
Yeah, it's okay. We're on Facebook and Instagram and yeah, Family Backpacking Pacific Northwest. We have a website, YouTube channel. I'm sorry. I just think everything's funny and appropriately, and a Facebook channel too. And usually I do a New Year's Day hike to Silver Falls, and I used to sponsor hikes all the time. I just got to get more comfortable with this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for eventually being able to get a bunch of people out together.
Yeah, I think it's so critical now.
If you're following along all this and you're like, man, I still have a couple questions, feel free to ask us. I mean, I volunteer. So for instance, yesterday I was on the Scout tree lot with my daughter for 10 hours, a little longer than I'm supposed to be. Our tree lot doesn't even open until Saturday, but there was just a bunch of volunteering opportunities. I hike with a lot of people. Most of the folks that we have in this group are avid hikers and happy to offer a great hike that's close, a practice hike. Even one I like is Kelly Butte. It's pretty low attended, kind of in a weird place on 103rd and like Division. It's in a weird spot. So we know a fair bit of these, and we also are familiar with resources. Tammy noted she's a proper official trainer of all kinds of cool outdoor safety stuff. And
I've seen her in action on the trail too.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm happy to, and I'm sure many of us are, to provide you a little 1, 2, 3 of things to look at. I recall vividly being at Tryon Creek Park, and we were there with Francis's boys, and I was telling her boys and Ava, and I don't know, pretty much anybody that listens, about the pile of debris that was on the ground. I said, yeah, this is usually made by these Douglas squirrels. And, and then we look up and there is the Douglas squirrel eating and dropping little bits as it's eating away.
Cute.
Happy to offer that kind of like, what should I look for? Deer ferns are everywhere. I like bear grass when it's in bloom. It's very particular.
Oh,
a lot of that stuff is elevation based. If you know where you're going, we could probably give you some stuff to look out or look for. And of course, there's tons of stuff. The world is YouTube now. So there's tons of stuff there. You obviously have the wonderful selection of classes at Alder Commons, and we're happy to offer whatever we can. We very much enjoy this. So please feel free to take note. You have a resource in us and in the group.
Yeah, we're the people behind all those social media points.
And I would say, take your phone with you or your camera. Cameras can be, in the rain, you don't want to take your nice camera, but your phones, modern phones are moisture resistant, and you can get some pretty cool shots, right?
Yeah.
I missed out on my opportunity to take a picture of a snake, but that's okay.
Oh my gosh, let it go, Leslie.
I want you to note this, Carl. Take a note.
And
you're in the tribe now.
Right. My nephew would point his phone at the thing and it would tell him what it was.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, they have an app.
Sounds like witchcraft. No.
No, what's that?
They'll do it now. So
what about you? Didn't you have what was your relative's a little person that was scared of rocks?
Oh, Zoe. Yeah.
Yeah, we had, so one of my nieces, we didn't realize until we were on the trail, a rocky trail, that she was afraid of rocks. So our quick little hike suddenly became a very slow hike. And we just said, well, we're gonna all be patient. Like, we didn't know, Zoe didn't know she was, this child didn't know that she was afraid of rocks. And by the end of it, all the kid was willing to hold her hands, and everyone was helping her, and they would stop and be like, Zoe, there's rocks ahead. And then towards the end of it, she had so much trust in the people who were with us and the other nieces and nephews that she was willing to go out on a log that was
big logs
above the ground. And my nephew went first, and then he came back and got her. And when she was done, he immediately stopped, and she trusted him to stop, and he led her back. And it's a great place for kids to learn that yes, your fear is legit, doesn't have to make sense to us, and yes, you can trust people. There are people who are trustworthy, and you can find who those people are in life, and who knows what else you could, you can learn all of the things.
But that's also trusting your body too, and how you move through the, mine like to run off and hide, and it really freaks other people out,
Right.
And they know how to traverse over things, but
they always come back.
You just spot them in the treetops 10 minutes down trail.
Well, I tell you, one mom who knows my kids is sort of super nervous, and then she gave me a walkie-talkie, which was he was like, I'm going. He was gone. So the next, because there were no rules set out, which it exacerbated things. I haven't heard back. Exactly. Awkward part of parenting. Any questions, you guys? I think we're about at time. Did we cackle too much? Oh, Lisa, you're.
I don't have your audio coming through. I don't know if it's just me.
Oh, my hand was covering.
There it is.
Sounds so like me.
I just wanted to say thank you. You answered all the questions that I had thought to ask. It was really great and encouraging. And I think in my family, I'm the very cautious one. So I'm the one I feel who holds the kids back when we get out. And hearing your stories, the whole, it's okay to make mistakes and just kind of the baby steps makes me feel like I can do it. However,
totally can do it.
Totally.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
thank you all. I just wanted to echo Lisa's comment.
Isn't it just like what Jessica said, that awesome story about like just getting to the trailhead and playing? That's just fine. And I have another website that called Fran's View, and I write about like I list like all the fears I had before taking my kids out. And what did you say, Tammy? It's a big deal and it's not a big deal. And Robert, like, you just got to do it. You just check through each one of those, and then you try to figure out like, what is that fear? Like I had a fear of being too far from the car. Oh, you know, it's all like, what are we gonna eat? Like, it's coming from somebody that feeds their kids cereal for dinner, you know, like, like, am I really concerned about this full meal thing, or it's gonna be healthy? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And just
I think in Portland, we're blessed with so many parks that are local that you can start there. You know, it doesn't, you don't have to go up to Mount Hood and hit a big trail, right? You know, first off, I mean, start locally and hit some of the smaller parks and go to the state parks that have amazing trails. You know, I think that's key, is to, you know, you progress yourself as your kid and your kids together.
Yeah.
And we are so fortunate. You have Oaks Bottom, you have Smith and Bybee. They're really neat places that are easy to get to. Parking's there. You know, we debate as a group about biking, and what I think we've come to is that at some point, if you're really embracing outdoors, you're kind of stuck transporting your stuff there. There are some cool bus routes that do take you into the forest that are pretty neat, and they pick you up too, and it's not just a one way. So there's a lot of options. If you have your vehicle as base camp, I mean, it just expands those options. Even if that base camp is just a mile away from your house and it's the mobile base camp, you can kind of pack really heavily and just have that in the van, and then take those excursions as Francis notes, of getting a little further away. Okay, I'm safe. Nothing crazy happened. I didn't need to bring crutches, right? You're okay. Of course, when you're within the city, 911 is a phone call away, and their response time is certainly under 10 minutes. So you certainly have a lot of resources in the city, even if the worst thing came. But I'm here to tell you that the worst thing rarely ever happens. That's one of the reasons you prepare for it, so it doesn't happen. Right?
And actually, the worst thing is the city, actually.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
I think Janice headed out.
Thank you, Janice.
Bye.